Production funding for Ruckus has been provided by Fred and Lou Hartwig and viewers like you. Thank you.
All right, welcome to Ruckus, that weekly food for thought fight over the news of the day and the trends of the times. I'm Mike Shannon. The Ruckettes join me shortly to discuss the most interesting Kansas Senate race in decades, what seems to be the unofficial start of Hillary's presidential campaign, and we'll try to find out if a name change is a game change. But first, our Ruckus Newsmaker interview with Wyandotte County Commissioner Ann Murguia, who has been on the commission since 2007. She ran unsuccessfully for mayor in 2013, losing to now Mayor Mark Holland. KCK and Wyandotte County have experienced remarkable success since voters approved consolidation of their governments beginning in late 1997. The familiar list of achievements for the unified government includes the Kansas Speedway, the Village West development, the Legends shopping area, Major League Soccer, Minor League Baseball, new Cerner office structures, and indeed there is much more. But let's talk about what's left. What problems does the unified government still face? And to talk about that and much more, we turn to Commissioner Murguia. Welcome. Thank you for joining us here on Ruckus.
Well, thanks for having me, Mike. I really appreciate it.
What do you think, looking at the structure of Wyandotte County and your experience on the commission, what are the two major problems that exist in your estimation that remain to be resolved?
I'd have to say the most major issue is property taxes. We still really struggle with that issue in Wyandotte County. I don't know if you're aware or not, but there are a number of people that decide every year in Wyandotte County not to pay their property tax any longer.
Don't look at me. I pay them.
And what happens then, as you know, is that you have to make up that revenue some other way, and that's been a challenge in Wyandotte County. You have some limited options, raise taxes, which personally I'm not a fan of. Grow your tax base through economic development and rooftops, which is challenging, but my preference, or become more efficient. And we're about as efficient as we can get right now. So it really limits our options.
Why are people not paying their taxes? Is that a result of a high degree of poverty in Wyandotte County and Kansas City, Kansas?
I think that's probably accurate. There is a lot of poverty, a lot of unemployment, specifically in pockets in Wyandotte County, and we've really struggled with that.
Well, I've lived in Kansas City, Kansas. Full disclosure, everyone. I live in Kansas City, Kansas, have for a long time. The issue of high taxes has been a problem for decades.
Yes, I would agree with you. And as I said, my personal belief, the way to work our way out of that is through development and new rooftops.
Haven't you worked in the district you represent to get public support, public dollars for some improvements to the area?
Yes. As you know, I'm not only the commissioner in Wyandotte County, but I'm also the executive director of the Argentine Neighborhood Development Association. We refer to that as ANDA. And as my role as executive director there, I raise charitable dollars to revive or redevelop the Argentine neighborhood specifically. And we've been pretty successful in raising dollars to offset the cost of redevelopment in that area.
Redevelopment that the city government can't undertake?
They partner frequently, but it's a larger gap in areas like Argentine where you have a high concentration of poverty.
Yeah, there's a significant minority population in Kansas City, Kansas and Wyandotte County. We all know about the recent crisis in Ferguson, Missouri, renewed emphasis on thinking about, talking about, worrying about race relations. There have been incidents going on at Washington High School in Kansas City, Kansas, and I realize as a commissioner you're not involved directly with school districts, but do you get any sense of racial tension, racial unrest in KCK?
That's a really delicate issue. And what I think it's going to take is for our commission and our mayor to stay focused on the importance of diversity and to continue to have a dialogue with all of our stakeholders in Wyandotte County about that issue. The only way we're going to be successful as a county is if we all work together.
Well, hasn't the mayor launched an initiative to get greater diversity on the police department?
Yeah, I think his initiative was launched at public safety in general, which includes fire and police. Yeah, absolutely, and I think the commission is very supportive of that.
When Mark Holland was elected mayor, he left the commission, and that left a vacant seat. And the commission has tried now for, what, about a year or more to fill that vacant seat. And every time there's a vote, it's a tie vote. And I gather with the elections coming up early in next year that nothing is going to be done. Isn't that a bit embarrassing that adults on the county commission can't resolve something like that and select a new member to fill that vacant spot?
I don't really look at it like that. I look at it as though most of the time the commission and the mayor work very collaboratively together. We have a great commission and our mayor is working very hard. I view it as we are not always going to vote exactly the same way. We are independent thinkers, and I think that's what we want in our politicians so that we know every area of our county is fairly represented.
Wrap it up. Just got about 30 seconds. What is next for you politically, if anything? You ran for mayor, put in a lot of effort in that campaign, did very well. What's next?
Well, I'm very focused on my re-election, which will take place in the spring of 2015 as the Unified Government Commissioner for District 3.
So you're running for, what, a third term?
A third term.
All right, Commissioner, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to meet you in person. We've chatted a couple of times on the phone. Come back and see us again.
Absolutely, thank you.
That is Commissioner Ann Murguia of the Wyandotte County Commission. Now come with me as we undertake the effort to start a ruckus. As you can see, all hands are on deck, so let's meet the Ruckettes. John Stevens is with Rock Hill Strategic and has served as interim CEO of the Convention and Visitors Association and president of the Power and Light District. Gwen Grant is president and CEO of the Kansas City Urban League. Mary O'Halloran is a media and communications consultant, and Jeff Rowe is founder of Axiom Strategies, a political consulting firm based in Kansas City. Welcome to John. Good to have you with us, and welcome back to Jeff. Just before we begin our discussions, I want to mention today is Rosh Hashanah, the beginning of the Jewish New Year. So to our many friends and viewers in the Kansas City Jewish community, Lashona Tova, a happy, healthy New Year. Not since 1932 has Kansas sent anyone but a Republican to the U.S. Senate. Some analysts think the GOP's winning streak will stop in 2014. The incumbent Republican, Pat Roberts, barely won his primary. The Democratic nominee, Chad Taylor, dropped out, apparently at the party's urging, when his campaign failed to generate support. Olathe businessman Greg Orman, the independent, is running ahead in the polls, so Roberts is calling in the heavy hitters, like the state's favorite son, Bob Dole. Can Kansans resist Dole as he pleads with them to send Pat Roberts back to D.C.? Let's start our discussion with Gwen.
Yes, they can, and I think they will. Orman is running a fantastic campaign. His ads are refreshing, and he's speaking to an electorate that I think wants to see some change in Washington, D.C. And he's, running as an independent and saying that he's not going to caucus with any particular party that is not in alignment with his perspective. Being willing to work on both sides of the aisle, I think, is very important in what we want to hear, because what's happening in Washington, D.C. right now is really appalling.
Well, Jeff, is it a good idea to elect someone who doesn't say with which party he will caucus? In other words, which party he'll side with when he goes to meetings about strategy and tactics and upcoming legislation?
No, I don't think so. I think that Roberts has a tested, trusted conservative in the state of Kansas for a generation now. They know they can count on him. The big issues in front of the country are homeland security, and he ran the Joint Committee on Intelligence. Agriculture is very important to the state. He chaired that committee. He has an experience. I'm worried about the kind of throwback Thursday, bringing back the old school politicians, Dole and McCain. I'm worried about that. They need to run a 2016 campaign instead of a 1996 campaign. But I don't believe that an independent with no infrastructure that hides from the media and only runs advertising can win.
I want to ask John, then Mary. George Will, the noted conservative columnist, said last evening, "It is Orman's to lose." Do you think that's true?
I wouldn't necessarily agree with that, but I do think Orman has taken a lot of the right steps to outline to an extent his platform and how he would differ from Roberts. But I think we need to be clear that for the majority of voters, a vote for Orman is a vote against Roberts and what he's doing. And I think with Sarah Palin coming in now, you know, sticking with Senators Dole and McCain have been valuable, but I don't know.
Quickly, Mary, is it Orman's to lose, as George Will suggests?
Well, the polls would suggest that. I had a chance to talk with Greg Orman for the first time. What an interesting man. And you know, you have, interestingly enough, you have the Independent here, who is an Olathe businessman with an incredible skill, apparently. I mean, he's just very successful. And 33 years in Washington, even Johnson County, for all of its Republican dominance, could not support Pat Roberts.
Got another Kansas topic we got to work in. He was in the wrong place at the wrong time, so says the Kansas Democratic nominee for governor, Paul Davis. A newspaper revealed this week that Davis was getting a lap dance at a strip club in the late 90s in Coffeyville when police stormed in looking for drugs. Davis was not married at the time, was with the law firm that represented the strip club. He was not arrested or charged, but the question seems to remain, will this have any negative effect on his campaign? Mary, I'm sure you will say no.
Well, no, you don't know what I'm going to say about this.
And I'm about to find out, I hope.
I haven't said it yet. Well, it could. On the other hand, this is kind of 1980s, isn't it? Kind of 19. Are people really tuned in to some? Paul was 26 at the time, and he, by the way, was the current police chief of Independence, Missouri, Independence, Kansas. Harry Smith said he was there. Paul Davis didn't do anything wrong. Nobody ever accused him of it. But you know, Governor Brownback right now is selling sex toys on the internet through the Department of Revenue.
Well,
now should we focus on
that's
that?
a bit of an exaggeration. I don't think the governor. Look, I know the story. I know the story. Governor Brownback is not on television selling sex toys. It's a clearance. It's a
is selling hundreds of sex toys for money on the internet. Should we make a lot to do over that?
Do people pay attention to this story about Davis? Perhaps, I think, more so than they pay attention to other aspects of the race for governor.
Yeah, unfortunately, stories like this do get in the news cycle, and I think that's the only negative about this. It's much ado about nothing, except for it's taken away from the news cycle.
You know, wouldn't the best thing for Davis to do, Jeff, would be to come out and say, yeah, you know, I did that. I made a mistake.
He did.
But, and then add, I wasn't spending millions of dollars the state didn't have.
Right. Well, Mary had a different opinion when Peter Kinder got caught in a similar situation.
Yeah.
Oh, did I?
You did. If we run the tape on
Well, he had a
that.
lot
I think
of
Tinder's situation was a little bit different.
So I'm sure, yeah, it was vastly different. He was Republican and the other Democrat.
So is it Brownback's to lose still?
It is. He's going to win the race. It's a distraction. What this does help is change the conversation in the race, and Brownback has been desperate in need of that conversation changer. This allows it. Now the race is a choice, and Brownback will win.
All right, once it was the Convention and Visitors Bureau of Kansas City, then it became the Kansas City Convention and Visitors Association. Now another name change, Visit KC. John, you've been inside the organization. Is this name change something special? Is it meant to be a game changer, or is it just perhaps style?
No, it's an incremental step. It's not a game changer, but I think what it represents is a much larger game changer for Kansas City. Kansas City has always had a challenge in communicating what we are as a community, and that we're a unified community. And when visitors come to Kansas City, they don't visit one state or another state or a county line. They visit Kansas City or KC, and that's what this represents, is all of Kansas City.
Now, you were the interim president and CEO of the group, and about a year ago in the Kansas City Star, I think you said we're seeing some definite numbers, I think show some positive signs, and 2014 is on tap to have the most hotel rooms booked since 2010. Has that happened or about to happen?
It has come to fruition. The numbers did increase. We ended on a high note. We paced and outpaced in many instances national trends, and we're in a good position, but we have a lot further to go.
What's the basic function of Visit KC?
Sure. Well, Visit KC represents igniting global passion for visiting Kansas City. So that's conventions, tourism, visitors. Kansas City draws, and most people don't know this, we draw 22 million visitors to Kansas City annually. So we're a major player nationally in tourism.
Gwen, what do you think?
I think the name change is great, and I think I'm excited about the new president, Ronnie Burt. I think he's going to bring.
Where's he come from?
Some strong leadership from Washington D.C.
From Washington D.C.
Oh, this is such exciting. You know, and don't you think Mayor Sly James does deserve a little bit of credit here?
Oh, he deserves massive credit for
you know,
changing the tone.
He put together his Mayor's Commission on the Arts, and that was their top priority. And by the way, I think that the film business will benefit from your efforts. For example, there's a new film coming out called The Good Lie. It's about Kansas City, but it was filmed in Atlanta. Had we had a film office with John and the new director and others working on it, we would have had that here.
Well, as Mary just hinted, in one of its first actions as Visit KC, the organization has revived the film office. A director has been hired and some funding is being provided by the city and other sources. The film office has been closed for 12 years, so is it now time that Kansas City will step up and roll out the red carpet, John?
Well, yes, absolutely. And I was lucky enough to serve on the Mayor's Task Force for the Arts. And one of the recommendations was reactivating a film office. But we took a little bit different approach for, I think, the 21st century, which is it's not just about major feature Hollywood productions anymore. This is about film and new media. And Kansas City is a leading center of innovation and new media, digital technology, advertising agencies. There is huge potential.
That's why you have to have a director working who understands all of that, right? And can be a source of contact for people in the industry?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I think it bears saying that Kansas City, the last decade, has not functioned without people passionate about film and production in Kansas City. There are great volunteers, but you need a full-time person dedicated. And putting it in within Visit KC, I think, sets the stage for a lot of success.
Some years back, I was on the film commission. The biggest problem then was money, a lack of money, and that still apparently is the situation, because it takes some money. Are you excited about Visit KC and this new effort to get
I love to visit KC. You know, one of the things that the advancement of technology has allowed is for literally for films to be shot anywhere.
Yeah.
So the secondary markets past the top 10 markets around the country, the secondary markets have become very competitive. You get into Columbus, Ohio has a leading film area. I mean, I think Kansas City's got a good opportunity.
All the major cities have this kind of office, do they not? And fund it and support it.
Absolutely. All major cities have it, and many of them also benefit from local or state tax credits.
Which is not the case in Missouri,
Which
right?
currently is not the case.
We're playing catch up. It does point out that if you're going to eliminate something from the government's agenda, when you try to go and start it all over again, it's starting from scratch.
Absolutely.
Democratic presidential frontrunner Hillary Clinton returned to Iowa a few days ago, site of an embarrassing defeat in the state's presidential caucus during the 2008 campaign. In her speech at a party event, she gave a few hints about her plans and appeared to be in a very positive mood.
Hello, Iowa! I'm back!
Wasn't that from Poltergeist? Analysts across the board say there is no longer any doubt about the former Secretary of State's political plans. She's running for 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. Jeff, do you have any reason to doubt their judgment about this?
I do. I mean, I might be the last soldier on the island with the knife in my teeth, but I don't believe she's going to run. I don't believe the reaction. That, first of all, if that was scripted, then that person should get fired. Yeah. And if she did it on her own, then it's clear that she's out of touch. She wants to put the "I'm back" behind her. She spent the last book tour distancing herself from the president. She now is going to have to distance herself from Bill, but it's clear that she wasn't there for the steak. She and Bill are vegans, so she clearly is making, a strong move.
It was steak dinner, steak roast by Tom Harkin, Senator Harkin, who's retiring.
So I think she's obviously, if she wants to run, she's the nominee. But I really think, I actually, as a Republican, hope she's the nominee. I do not believe she invokes any passion for Democrats. She tried it once, and it's already been proven wrong.
Gwen, if by chance Hillary Clinton doesn't run, and I suspect she will and be the nominee if she chooses to, but if she does not, are there other Democrats who would be viable waiting in the wings? And if so, can you name a couple?
I think Biden is waiting.
I said viable.
Well, that's your opinion about Biden.
You think he's a viable candidate?
Well, yeah, I think so. Okay. But I think Hillary's going to run, and I think she'll be a strong candidate for the presidency for a number of reasons. I mean, she's going to really women voters. Women are going to love Hillary Clinton, especially in light of the way the Republican Party treats women and the way the Republican Party responds to minorities. She's going to be a very strong adversary. So I don't know who else in the Democratic Party could
John,
stir
I don't know
up
your
that
political
type of passion
inclinations,
right
but
now.
based on where you're sitting, I assume you're not a conservative Republican. Do you think Republicans have a program to hurt women, have a war on women, as Gwen frequently suggests?
No, I certainly wouldn't go that far, but I think some decisions and things that have been made. I would say, to go back to the Hillary discussion, I think she will run. I think the landscape has changed dramatically since '08. I think that she is, while perhaps core Republican or conservative voters have a more negative feeling towards Hillary Clinton, if that's possible. I think your moderate and your liberal, or your more Democratic voters, core Democratic voters, have a more favorable impression in many instances.
For somebody who's been to the Tom Harkin steak fry, that's a really big deal.
Oh, sure.
Yeah,
and
it is.
People come from other
She had good
states.
reason to go. There's no doubt about that.
And it is the first time she was that candid.
Don't you
about
think it's a clear-cut indication she's running, though?
Absolutely. And let me just say that she has separated herself from the president when she ran against
Which one?
him.
Bill or
The
Barack?
president. The current
Oh, the current
Our
president.
president of the United States of America. She separated
Yeah.
herself from him many
On the Middle
ways
East
during
recently.
during the campaign that she ran against him. And by the way, she carried women and blue-collar men in Ohio and Pennsylvania and Illinois and Wisconsin and New York and New Jersey. And the battle is on, Jeff.
Well, Mary, the only thing that kept her from getting the nomination in 2008 was a once-in-a-generation phenomenon named Barack Obama.
Well, his skill.
I mean,
and
she would have
his-
gotten it otherwise.
His skill and his ability and his and his campaign. He was a 21st century candidate, and she will be too.
We always want to be
This time.
fair, so let's talk about Republicans in 2016. And Jeff, do you have any suggestions?
Well, I would.
Are you working for Ted Cruz? I think I
am.
read that.
I am.
Is he indeed running, you think?
Well,
Obviously, he's thinking seriously about it.
I'm helping him build his national profile, helping him to help elect Republicans to take over the United States Senate. But Hillary, the way she ran against the president last time was by being pro-war, if you'll recall. And so that she was stale in 2008. And I can't imagine any Republican, of the Republicans that we have, a bench that we have, of Marco Rubio, Chris Christie, Ted Cruz, Rick Perry, Rand Paul, Scott Walker. Now, there is an elephant in the room, which is Jeb Bush. And if Jeb Bush runs, he will keep some of those folks from running. He will suck some oxygen out of the air. And we could have, the potential for the Clintons and the Bushes to be running again.
Republicans always have an elephant in the room.
They always have an elephant in the room.
Cruz.
Final comments, Mary?
Well, I am glad for Ted Cruz that he has your expertise, Jeff.
It's precious of you to say.
It's precious because I mean it. I mean, he's a lucky man because he is so far to the right that he scares everybody, including a lot of Republicans.
All right, we have a quick programming note. Friday evening at 7 and then Sunday morning at 11:30, KCPT will present, or 11, I guess, on Sunday, America After Ferguson, a PBS town hall meeting hosted by Gwen Ifill. The Ruckus rebroadcast, normally seen at 11:30 on Sunday, will air at 6:30 p.m. this week only. And now it's time for Roast and Toast, where we give a pat on the back or a kick in the pants to people and events of the news. We start this week with John.
My toast is the KC Chamber of Commerce, with them adding early childhood education to the Big Five ideas. It is absolutely needed. It's vital. And while it's fraught with, I think, some pitfalls there, because education has been a difficult topic in our community for years, it's necessary.
My toast this week is to the Johnson County Commission on the Aging that decided to tell the truth to the people of Johnson County about Sam Brownback's Health Care Compact, a bill that would take all of the Medicare funds from the federal government and put them under his control. They decided to publish the truth about this bill in the Best Times, which goes to thousands of Johnson Countyans. They tried to bully them into not doing it, Mary Pilcher Cook and other conservatives. They decided against that. They stood up. It'll be published today, and you'll get it in your mailbox.
I'm going to roast the NFL for its poor handling of child abuse, spousal abuse situations, and then to appoint 4 women to address spousal abuse in an industry where you have more than 60% African Americans, and everyone in recent incidents are African American, and you can't find a woman of color to serve on this panel. Shame on you.
I want to toast the Royals and Ned Yost. Now, the fans have been tough on Ned, but just a primer for the playoffs. If the pitcher fakes to third and throws to first, don't yell balk. If he decides to have Escobar bunt with less than 2 outs and runners on first and second, it's okay. But a toast to Ned Yost, who's had a tough road, but he's finally brought us to the promised land.
All right, and finally, my roast is for Kansas City, Missouri Councilwoman Jan Markison, who wrote to roast us saying she could not believe that I interviewed Dan Coffrin on Ruckus. The councilwoman complaining that it was purely a political campaign for Dan's mayoral race. Well, here is my response. The segment is called A Newsmaker Interview. Coffrin was making news because, and only because, he said he might, again, might run for mayor. Now, what about that is hard to believe or hard to understand. To submit your roast or toast about people and events in the news, use one of the methods shown at the bottom of the screen, or I would suggest go to ruckus@kcpt.org. And that's Ruckus for this week. We're back next Thursday at 7 o'clock. Now, on behalf of all the Ruckettes, thank you very much for watching, and good night.